Our story starts off with a vampire, Staz, raging at a video game and weeping out. He explains that he lives in the demon world, but his dream is to one day visit the human realm. He suddenly gets a call from his underling claiming that they found a human, Fuyumi. He begins freaking out and commands them to bring her to him because he is the territory boss of East Demon World. Staz begins brainstorming ways to impress her until she arrives at the door. He sees that she's a bad bee and experiences bloodlust at first sight. Staz asks her many questions about the human realm but suddenly gets a call that he is being attacked. Fuyumi convinces him to help, so he tests fall damage as he passes a mysterious plant on his way down. He begins walking towards the enemy while the monster's tentacles assault him. But since it's not 18+, he breaks out and touches the opponent's heart before making him flatline. Staz gets cheered on by his underlings, then returns to his room and sees a plant inside having his lunch. He rips the monster a new hole and finds her clothes inside, but Fuyumi starts screaming in the corner. They realize that she has been turned into a ghost, so Staz swears that he will bring her back to life. He gives her some new clothes and goes to do in-depth research on the topic by reading his mangas. Fuyumi realizes she's doomed as Staz finds out about 7 balls that summons a dragon. But she saves him from a copyright infringement and reveals she remembers how she came to the demon realm. Fuyumi shows him a portal that leads to the human world, which surprises him. She tries to go through, but he tells her it's a high-tier spatial spell, so they should be careful, and carries her to a cafe, where he gets his friends to open their cosmic eyes to make sure she can pass through unharmed. They tell Staz that she can go through the portal, but she shouldn't stay too long or she could face unwanted effects. He reveals that he intends on accompanying Fuyumi on her journey. Everyone objects because him leaving his throne would cause a power vacuum that would result in all his underlings going on a vacation to heaven, so Staz does a pro move instead and resigns so he won't be responsible for their visit to Demon Jesus. But conveniently, his subordinates comes in to introduce a new teammate that can copy Staz's appearance to solve all their problems. They gather at the portal where Staz begins to get hyped up, then carries them through. They enter Fuyumi's room, but he is unimpressed by its lack of personality and decides to visit her school. He encounters her father, who begins to scold Fuyumi, so Staz sprays her with the Bill Cosby spray and hypnotizes him to go away. Staz goes out to stray, taking pictures of everything along the way. He draws attention to himself, so he decides to show the students his spray to make their suspicions go away. They sit in her class as Fuyumi realizes that she's beginning to disappear, so Staz decides to bust some of his fluids for her to swallow until she's fully satisfied. He walks down the hall and begins to feel weak, and Staz decides to go back to the demon world until he has refilled his magic. They return to her room to see Belle bouncing on the bed. Belle says it's her portal, so Staz accuses her of planning to use his absence to take over his territory. But she ignores him and tries to extort them for using her portal, so Staz attempts to practice equal rights, but she eats him away. He walks through the city when Belle confronts him, so they play a game of whack-a-mole, until she shows up holding a pewter at Fuyumi's head and blackmails Staz into getting an item for her. Belle goes back to Fuyumi's room, where she reveals that she can't close the portal because someone stole it from her to put it there. She's on a mission to find the powerful thief so she can marry them. Staz walks into a store where he tells the booty warrior that he came for an item. He stretches and invites Staz to a dark room where he shows him the sacred underwear. He fists Staz hard against the wall. He recovers from the blow as the booty warrior prepare another round of fisting, but Staz uses powers to make him stiff and commits a hate crime to win the fight. Belle comes in and questions why he's fighting for Balls warmer, so Staz decides to fist her too, but Fuyumi comes in and reveals that Belle has a way to revive her, by finding the book that is located in West Demon World's territory. They redress Fuyumi as Staz decides it's time for payback, but she pulls out the reverse card on him. They head back to the demon world where he angers PETA and decides to use the mutated cat as his GPS. They call an Uber and pay the shiny Combuskins to carry them over to West Demon World. While traveling, he forces the cat to look ahead where it sees the territory boss, Wolf, and begins to freak out as they're about to crash into him, but Wolf slices it in half as Staz lands on his pipe. It's revealed that Staz and Wolf are both friends, so he asks Wolf to help him look for the book. But he tells Staz that his territory is too big for him to work for free, so Staz comes up with a bet to help him look if he wins, but Wolf gets Fuyumi if he loses. Wolf has taste in women, so they decide to have a bowling competition where Staz reveals that he will cheat in order to win, but the competition was changed to boxing last minute, so they dress Fuyumi in some appropriate clothing. The match begins with Wolf going on the attack, but Staz decides to go in for a clinch, so Wolf counters with a hook that knocks down Staz. He gets back up, so Wolf starts an onslaught of punches that Staz recovers quickly from. He tries to beat Staz until he runs out of magic, but he suddenly feels weak as he finds a tooth in him. Staz revealed that he was taking Wolf's magic to heal himself from the punches and goes in for a shoryuken that ends with a down B. Wolf tries to get back up and transforms into a werewolf, so Staz begins to touch his heart, then prepares to send him to greater hell, but Fuyumi steps in and smacks some sense into him because they are friends. Belle comes into the arena and Sorcerer Supremes them away, where they make up again, as Wolf reveals that she told him to change the match from boxing to bowling. Belle comes and then hands over the Book of Resurrection to Staz's annoyance. But they have no idea how to read it, so he checks who the author is and realizes that it's his older brother. Wolf explains that Staz is from royalty above the demon realm, but Staz is afraid to go back because he ran away. Wolf gets kinky and motivates him to make Belle take him to the royal city. Belle refuses to do it, but Wolf convinces her to do what he wants also. She makes a portal that Wolf kicks Staz into, which leads to her bedroom. She comes in and gives him something to drink as she takes a shower and stalks him. She exits the bathroom wearing normal clothes and asks him to show her his secret, which shocks Staz. She explains that his magic looks like most of it is locked away. So he explains that his brother used to do experiments on him to make his magic plus ultra, but in reality, he was trying to send him to heaven, and one day he used a purer to give him a heart attack to seal away his powers. Belle begins using a smartphone, which gets Staz's attention. He weeps out over it as she begins coming up with a plan to awaken his magic. She tells Staz to let his brother take out the hole maker, but he refuses, so Belle challenges him to a 1v1. She leaves him locked in her portal until he decides to give up, but promises that when he gets his full power he is going to defeat her. Then Belle takes him to the royal realm, where he solid snakes about until he encounters Darth Lowly wielding an axe. She chases him with the body divider as Staz begs his sister Liz for mercy. She responds by casting a spell that makes a giant hand appears in the sky to give him a fisting so deep it sends him to the demon prison. Meanwhile, Fuyumi sits with Wolf and begins acting strange and falls asleep, so he decides to leave with her. When they realize that she is now disabled, they bring her to Frankenstein, where he reveals that because she has vampire magic inside of her, Fuyumi's body is beginning to break down. He tells them that the only way to save her is to allow her to drink the rest of Staz's blood and become a full vampire, but Belle comes in to dispute it. Wolf gives him a little motivation, so Frankenstein explains that he can remove the vampire magic from her body to heal her, but in return he wants them to destroy his most recent creation, which has been going on a rampage in the demon world. Staz fights with the guards and gets his butt beat. He tries to go for round 2 with the same result, while his brother Braz comes to the prison to visit him. He takes out the purer to make holes in Staz, but explains that they are healing pew-pews. Staz asks him how to revive humans, but he refuses to say. Braz questions why he wants to revive Fuyumi and begins to make fun of him. Liz gets jealous seeing them get along and attacks them, so Braz blocks it. She begins to question why he likes Staz more than her, so he goes over to comfort her. Staz scolds her for locking him in prison and asks Braz to show him how to use the book. Braz decides that he will tell him how if he can defeat a monster that has been rampaging through the demon world. Staz refuses to fight him, but Braz tells him that he'll take out the seal he placed so he can use his full power. He begins explaining that as a child he was successful in bringing out his hidden powers, but his body was breaking under the pressure, so he was forced to seal it until now when he has grown. Staz still refuses, so Braz decides to order the zombies to send him to the promised land unless he decides to unlock the seal. He runs at Braz, who takes out the lead out of Staz. After his powers return, he gets up and instantly defeats all the guards. Meanwhile, Wolf wanders the demon realm looking for Frankenstein's monster. He encounters another territory boss and slaps the piece of pork into the wall. He gets up from the beating as a hand suddenly comes through his stomach, revealing that there was a surprise inside. The monster explains that he used spatial magic to force his way into his body and bust him apart. He tries to punch Wolf, but he breaks his arms, then tries to pipe him down. But the monster explains that no matter how much he breaks his body, it will not hurt him because his true form is a phantom. Wolf decides to get serious and transforms into a werewolf and begins to overwhelm the freak of nature. He goes in for the attack, but the monster tries to poke him, but Wolf counters by cutting him into ribbons. Staz enters the fight as the monster begins putting his puzzle pieces back together. Wolf begins to deform, so Staz decides to step in and blow the monster outside the city. He follows it outside and begins beating the brakes off the monster, but it took no damage. He prepares for a lawsuit, but luckily the monster interrupts the attack and questions why he's using that move. Staz decides to get serious and uses his full power to charge at him and rips his body to pieces. Staz decides to finish off the fight by crushing both his heart and body into dust, but while walking away, Wolf confronts him and asks for a fight. Like the video. If you liked the video, subscribe for more, and thanks for watching. Stay swifty.